And neither did I until Howard talked to me but I kind of knew it this morning. I woke up in the middle of the night and Yahweh put it on my heart and said, be prepared because I have a word for you to speak today. He didn't tell me the word exactly, so we were there. So a lot of you guys, well, first let's pray. Let me say a prayer first and then we'll get started. Father Yahweh, blessed are you, our Creator Elohim. We thank you for a blessed Shabbat. We thank you for fellowship. We thank you for your Son and the life that you give us through him. We pray that you would be with us today. I pray that you would be with me, that we speak your word. May it be truth. Father, I ask this in Yeshua's name. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. So I know some of you guys know myself and my wife. For those that don't, my name is Joshua Deck. I live in Stockton, Missouri. My wife, Jenny, and my son moved out here in 2020. During COVID, we decided it was time to get off the East Coast and get to somewhere where there's a lot more sane people around. And so,
you come to the wrong place.
So a little background. My first feast was in 2001, first Feast of Tabernacles, when I was 16, I believe I was then, 16, 17 years old. I came out to Missouri with YRM, was having a feast, and with my grandparents. My grandparents had kept Shabbat and feasts since, I would say, I guess the 60s. My grandma, Mildred, her brother was Jacob O'Meyer from the Assemblies of Yahweh in Bethel, who I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. Back in 82, there was the infamous split with the Mansagers. My oldest aunt had married a Mansager, therefore my family found their way out as well. So because of that split, I think that my father and most of the rest of my family, except my aunt, had fallen away from the faith. I grew up kind of in this weird spot. We didn't eat pork, but we didn't keep Shabbat. We didn't really do Christmas, but we didn't go to the feasts or anything until I was a little bit older. Like I said, I kept the feasts a couple times as a teenager, and then I kind of went on my young rebellious streak in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, where I met my wife. Not that she was rebellious by any means, not that we were even that, but we, after a number of years of being together, we're going to the Catholic Church because that's where she was raised in, and I said, I was getting to become a prepper, preparedness. That was my goal, preparedness. And, I was to the point, well, I need to build this bunker. And then I thought, well, and then what? If my heart isn't right with Yahweh, there's no point, right? Even if I make it out, what's the point? Unless I have hope and faith. And I knew it was right because I was raised, my grandmother sowed the word in me as a young age, and praise Yahweh for her. And because it took a while, that seed laid in the soil dormant for a long time until it finally sprouted and grew. And we were baptized in, I think, 2013. Jacob Seemeyer had baptized us. We were going to Fryestown, which was affiliated with the Rocheport group. And we started coming here, and it really reminded us of Fryestown back in the day, because this is a gem of an assembly, and appreciate that, and appreciate Howard's willingness to let me come up here and speak without even really knowing that much. So just might be sorry, but no, I'm just kidding. So when I don't have anything prepared in notes, we're going to start in the beginning. Not in the very beginning, but Bereshit chapter 2, close enough to the beginning. You want to turn there with me? We read this every Erev Shabbat at our table. It's Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their array. And in the seventh day Elohim completed his work which he had done. And he rested in the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim blessed the seventh day and set it apart, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim in creating had made. These are the births of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh Elohim made earth and heavens. Now no shrub of the field was yet on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up. For Yahweh Elohim had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. But a mist went up from the earth and watered the entire surface of the ground. And Yahweh Elohim formed the man out of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils breath of lives, and the man became a living being. And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yahweh Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there divided and became four headwaters. And it talks about, we can skip down, it talks about these different rivers, skip down to 15. And Yahweh Elohim took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, Eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall certainly die. The reason I'm starting here is, what really put this on my heart is we have, I love the way we have such a prayer list here, and we really pray for people here. That's an important thing to this depth. You don't see it at every assembly. But it really hurts my heart to see all these sick people and people with cancer, people with all these things. And it was not so from the beginning. This came into the world because of the curse, because they ate from that tree. But then something more insidious has happened in the past few decades. Really, this goes back maybe 100 or so years or more. But there has been a poisoning of our body through our food supply. Absolute poisoning of our body. The reason I started here is because, well, let's look again at verse 7. Yahweh Elohim formed the man, which is Adam, from dust, from the ground. Now, if the word ground is Adamah, which is where we get the word Adam from. Adam comes from Adamah. That is what we are. We are dirt. We are the soil. And really, we're not dirt. We're soil. We're living. True soil. There's a difference. There's a book out there. It's called From Dirt to Soil. Because dirt is inanimate. It's just the mineral constituents. Soil, Adamah, ground, is alive. And it's living. There is more life in 1 teaspoon of soil, microbiology. Now, 1 teaspoon of soil, then I think then there's people on the earth or something. It's in the billions, the amount of microbiology, because that's what it takes for a plant to grow, truly grow. And the job of all those, that microbiology, is to transfer the minerals in the soil into our bodies, into this vessel. Now, we know, and again, not being prepared with notes, I don't know the exact verse, but we know our body is the temple of set apart spirit. Anybody know it off the top of their head? Anybody? The verse? It's not a big deal. We don't have to go there, but it's there. So our body is a temple, and we need to have a clean temple. We know when Solomon built the temple was clean. Our modern system, and this is where I'm saying it goes back over 100 years, this insidious plan, our modern system of medicine doesn't use the things that Yahweh made, the natural parts and constituents of creation, to treat our illnesses, our diseases. They use, pharmacy is, pharmakia is where they get the word pharmacy from. essentially forms of witchcraft, more or less, to treat us. But they don't use the things that Yahweh supplied us with. And that's where the insidious part of this comes in, because not only that, not only kind of the pushing away of herbs and treatment and bringing in the pharmacy, but also like I said, the poisoning of our food system. So one of the reasons, I said earlier about the mRNA vaccines, but the other reason that you want to really know where your food is coming from is because we have, in anything that's not organic, more than likely it's sprayed with Roundup, glyphosate. You don't know what that does. The way that its mode of action is, it actually, to kill all the weeds, what they call weeds in the field, it deprives them of nutrients. It's a chelator. It locks it up, and it allows them, and it makes it that they can't take up these nutrients. But over years, with corn and soybean and these other what they call Roundup ready crops, they've been genetically modified in order to be able to kind of bypass this chelation and still take up those minerals. Now, where I was going with the whole pharmacy is, they want to treat us with this, but really, we don't have a pharmaceutical deficiency in our bodies that causes disease. What we have is a nutrient deficiency. We have deficiency of proper nutrients because our food is essentially dead food. It does not have what it takes. If you have live soil, the way Yahweh intended it, the way Yahweh created it in the garden, that has all the biology in there, that live biology, your food is, 10 times as nutrient dense as what you're going to get, off the soil. And that's where diet is super, super important in healing, because Yahweh has made a system. He created an amazing system. When you really think about it, and you look at the things he gave us to eat, we can eat plants. Any seed bearing plant is ours for food. We can eat that. He gave us meat as well. But look at the meat that we can eat. All these creatures, the land, the four-legged creatures we can eat, every single one of them gets their food from the ground, from grass. We don't really, other than birds and fish, those are the only creatures that he says that we can eat. Some birds and fish, they might eat other proteins. Otherwise, any protein that we take in an animal form is getting its food from the earth. His creation that he made was ordered, and I think it's really important. And I think that, going back to my wife and I's kind of conversion, coming up to baptism, I used to eat a horrible diet. I was about 50 pounds heavier. I used to, eat a large cheesesteak, Philly cheesesteak every week, a couple of them a week, all kinds of stuff. But I was heavy. I had all kinds of gout pain, like in my feet. It would hurt to walk sometimes. It felt like I had golf balls in my arches. And it was just because I was eating junk. Well, my wife said, we gotta lose weight. We gotta change we gotta start exercising. Started exercising. I lost about 20 pounds. Was feeling better. But it's just, I couldn't lose. I was still a little overweight. Well, until we changed our diet drastically, we went on like what they call like a paleo diet. So we cut out all carbs, all dairy, all kinds of stuff. We've introduced stuff back in, but we got real radical. And in her insistence with it, it didn't take long until I shed another 30 pounds. And I was just, and I felt great. And then my mind felt great. And then I would feel that my vessel was more receptive for the Spirit to come into me and for a stronger spiritual life. And that was huge. So where I'm going with this is, Yahweh intended us to be servants of the earth. And there's a time coming when we're going to have to rely on that, because we're not going to, the food system is going to be so controlled, and we're going to get there. I don't know how much time I have. I don't know how much time I have. What do you think? Half hour?
Whatever.
30 minutes? I ain't going to keep you here. I want to leave some time for dialogue at the end. As servants of the earth, I think that's how Yahweh is going to preserve us in the tribulation to come. Because when that mark comes, the mark of the beast comes, unless you accept it, you're not going to be able to buy or sell. You're not going to be able to eat. So we have to be able to provide for ourselves. We have to be able to grow our own food. We have to be able to provide these things. And we should, that's really what he wanted us to do from the beginning. Israel, we know, was an agrarian society. That's what the feasts are all about. The feasts are about bringing up our offerings from the ground, from the earth that he gives us, bringing those first fruits and giving them to him as a means but it was a means of support. It was a means of praise, but it was really a means of support for those that served him, for the priests. It also was for the widows, for the orphans. And that was his whole purpose in the feast. It's also for us to get together and worship him. But it was the rhythm, the agricultural rhythm of the society. Turn with me to Psalm 37. Psalm 37. Do not fret because of evildoers. Do not be envious of the workers of unrighteousness, for they soon wither like grass and fade like green plants. Trust in Yahweh, do good, dwell in the earth, and feed on steadfastness. And delight yourself in Yahweh, and let him give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to Yahweh and trust in him, and he does it. And he shall bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your right ruling as midday. Rest in Yahweh and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man doing wicked devices. Abstain from displeasure and forsake wrath. Do not fret, also to do evil. Do not fret, also to do evil. For evildoers are cut off, but those who wait on Yahweh, they shall inherit the earth. There's a theme here. How many times does it say that the righteous inherit the earth? Yet a little while, and the wrong is no more, and you shall look on his place, but he is not. But the meek ones shall inherit the earth and delight themselves in plenty of peace. I guess last time you guys met, you would have read Matthew 5. Yeshua was quoting that right there. The meek ones shall inherit the earth. I'm just going to pause. We'll keep going here in a second, but I just want to pause and go back where it said in verse 4, and delight yourselves in Yahweh. With this system that he created, and I by no means am I doing this perfect. I actually struggle every day to try to live from the earth, to try to bring forth our food. We have a few cattle. We have a dairy cow that I milk every day. But I enjoy that. I feel it locks, it absolutely locks us down. It makes it difficult to come to the feast, which I've actually got her on a different cycle now. So she'll be dry during the feast this year. So hallelujah for that. But at any rate, it locks me in a cycle where every morning I go out at the rising of the sun and I get to hear his creation come alive. I get to see the sun creep up over the trees. And then it's very meditative to sit there and, milk the cow and think, this time of year, it's obviously coming from hay, but, the time of the year, well, knowing like, hey, yesterday this milk that I'm putting into this pail was green grass. And then where'd that green grass come from? Well, that green grass came from a combination of the earth under our feet and the sun that he sent down to photosynthesize and the rain that he sends. And it makes you say, wow, how dependent are we on Yahweh? I mean, because any food is like that. How many people don't even acknowledge that? They don't even stop and think Yahweh provides for us. Most people believe I shouldn't say most, a lot of people believe that this is all just some big old accident, and it just somehow, these things just happened over, millions of years. It's funny, as a kid, it was millions and it became billions. It's like they got to make it longer and longer and longer because, the math doesn't work when they start to do things and say, well, but my whole thing is, how does this even work? Without all these little pieces have to work together. So how can it all just start from one little single cell organism and somehow become such a great creation? I don't see it. This morning I was blessed, even though I was frustrated because I had frozen water and I was out there dealing with some frozen water because I knew we wanted to get on the road to come here. But as when I went out first thing this morning, I could hear some geese. And I watched a little flock of geese fly by. And then as they flew closer, I could hear the turkeys heard them. The turkeys started gobbling off in the distance. And then a little bit later, when I was kind of messing with this water, I heard this strange dying chicken sound at first. And I looked up because I heard something in the air, and here's 7 trumpeter swans flying in a beautiful formation over. How's that for a beautiful Shabbat morning present, seeing these 7 beautiful swans and just delighting yourself in his creation is so amazing, with trying to disconnect. And we're going to get to electronics and the way that the beast at Babylon is pushing us here shortly. But it's completely opposite of what Yahweh created and intended for us. The virtual reality that everybody's going to put on these goggles now to have virtual reality, but the reality is around us. That's what we need to live and breathe. All right, back to 12, 37:12. The wrong plots against the righteous and gnashes his teeth at him. Yahweh laughs at him, for he sees that his day is coming. The wrong have drawn the sword and have bent their bow to cause the poor and needy to fall, to slay those who walk straightly. Their sword does enter into their own heart, and their bows are broken. Better is the little of the righteous one than the riches of many wrongdoers. For the arms of the wrongdoers are broken, but Yahweh sustains the righteous. Yahweh knows the days of the perfect, and their inheritance is forever. That's the biggest thing. That's our biggest hope. The inheritance, this inheritance is forever. We know right now much of what we see is going to be destroyed. And I kind of have a different view. I shouldn't say different, it's still the same, right? I know that this whole world is going to be destroyed with fire. My belief, though, if you kind of go through Revelation and add everything up, 90% is going to be burnt and gone. 10% is going to remain, be a little ark, kind of like Noah's Ark, right? Because this time it's not water that's coming to judge the earth, it's fire. Noah didn't leave and go anywhere else when it happened, when the flood came. There's going to be, I don't know where, I don't have any of these answers. We all one day are going to figure this out together. But there's going to be little arcs around this world that when everything else burns around us, we're going to remain. But that 10%, even that will be tested, because it says again and again that it will be burnt over again to refine even further. So we have to be ready spiritually. If we are, Yahweh will prepare the way and provide for us. But this inheritance is forever. It's ours. It's been destroyed. It's being destroyed. Revelation 11, 11:8, I believe. We'll come back to this psalm in a second. Because we're talking about the wicked in here. 11, no, it's later. 11:18. And the nations were enraged, and your wrath has come, and the time of the dead to be judged, and to give the reward to your servants, the prophets, and to the set apart ones, and to those who fear your name, small and great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. The destroyers of the earth, like I said, this insidious plan has been coming along for a long time, but it's been ramped up. My belief actually is that the Industrial Revolution, there was just like after the time or early on when I don't know how, if everybody kind of believes, I think that in Genesis 6, where it says that angels came down with the daughters of men, there was certain knowledge that was given to men at that time. And that's where they learned warfare from that. They learned how to work metal. They learned a lot of things that we take for granted and use today, but it was ultimately, it would not have been necessary to sustain life. We could have lived without it, but it was given, and it was used ultimately to destroy the earth to a point that Yahweh said it got to get wiped out with a flood. Well, at the age of the Industrial Revolution, I believe that a lot of these men that were given knowledge were given to it from out of this world, because some of the things that we have are out of this world. Our phones that we use, tell me how that really works. I know there's electrical guys that can really tell me how they work, but even still, it's a bunch of minerals that somehow work. And it's still, it is like magic to me, but we learn to accept it and turn on our computers and everything every day because this is the world we live in. But it's crazy, the things that we have and where we came, how far man has come. And it has done a lot of good, but it has done harm. And we're going to see technology be used to do a lot more harm. The amount of technology that are on the tips of these new, weapons and warheads and everything else. That's why silver prices have shot up, because they need silver for all the electrical connections on these warheads, because silver transfers information instantaneously. Copper has a little bit of a lag. Silver is instantaneous. So in order for all these weapons to work, they need silver. That's why silver prices are going up. That's why you're going to see the demand for silver continue to rise and rise. All right, 37:19. They are not ashamed. We'll start back in 18. Yahweh knows the day of the perfect, and their inheritance is forever. They are not ashamed in a time of evil, and in the days of scarcity of food, they are satisfied. Why is that? Why does he say that? Because, like I'm saying, he will give us, if we're going to be servants of his, that means we're going to be servants of the earth, of this creation, and he will sustain us with it. Scarcity of food will come, but he will provide for us. Because real food, you will not be able to find real food. They'll feed you Soylent Green, but you're not going to get real food. But the wrongdoers shall perish, and the enemies of Yahweh, like the splendor of the meadows, they vanish. Like smoke, they vanish away. And as someone that I haven't always had animals, but having animals, you don't realize how much you appreciate growing grass until you have animals. And then when you don't have growing grass and you got to feed hay every day, it vanishes. It goes away. Where does it go? Well, the microbiology eats it up and cycles it, gets it ready to cycle for next year, but it vanishes. The wrongdoer is borrowing and does not repay, but the righteous one shows favor and gives. For his blessed ones inherit the earth, but those cursed by him are cut off. The steps of a man are ordered by Yahweh, and he delights in his way. Though he falls, he is not cast down, for Yahweh is supporting his hand. I have been young, and now I am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his seed begging bread. All day long he is showing favor and lending, and his seed is for a blessing. Turn away from evil and do good, and dwell forever. For Yahweh loves right ruling and does not forsake his lovingly committed ones. They shall be guarded forever, but the seed of the wrongdoers is cut off. The righteous shall inherit the earth and dwell in it forever. The mouth of the righteous speaks wisdom, and his tongue talks of right ruling. The Torah of his Elohim is in his heart. His steps do not slide. The wrong one is watching for the righteous and seeking to slay him. Yahweh does not leave him in his hand, or let him be declared wrong when he is judged. Wait on Yahweh and guard his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the earth. When the wrongdoers are cut off, you shall see it. I have seen the wrongdoer in great power, and spreading himself like a native green tree. Yet he passed away, and see, he was not. And I sought him, but he was not found. Watch the perfect and observe the straight, for the latter end of each is peace. But the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The latter end of the wrong shall be cut off. But the deliverance of the righteous is from Yahweh, their strength in time of distress. And Yahweh does help them and deliver them. He delivers them from the wrongdoers and saves them, because they took refuge in him. All right, back to this insidious plan. In 1961, there was and I can't think of it. I tried to figure it out on the way here, but I have this report at home. In 1961, there was the Community of Economic Development came out with a report on agriculture. This Community of Economic Development was primarily like the people that had Ford, Heinz 57, Sears Roebuck. Basically, I think it was a list of like 400 different, companies, and each person from send them a little delegate to be part of this Community of Economic Development. They came along and said, well, we have a little bit of a problem because we don't have enough workers, and the rural America is a little too independent. Rural America is kind of well armed, and they can feed themselves, and but we need more workers. So they basically said, well, the way the report ends up reading is it says we need that they're uneducated and they're only able to do their farming. So we need to educate the rural America in order to help prosper rural America. But in turn, and what their actual motive was to destroy rural America. They said they need to be more productive. They need to come up with more productive ways in order to farm. We need to continue to this path of, and this started in the 1800s with chemical agriculture, using chemicals. And I actually have an interesting book I'm reading right now called Stone or Bread from Stone. And it's about, and this German gentleman, doctor, wrote this book in the late 1800s, and you could swear he wrote it today, within the last decade, because he talks about how the soils are becoming infertile because of all the chemical fertilizers, and the crops depend on it. And he's saying, look, you don't need that. What you need is rock dust, good rock dust, ground fine, because that's where the minerals are. That's where your the bread gets its food gets its nutrients from. And it was a treatise kind of against modern agriculture. Well, by the 60s, it's well established. But they said we need to continue to push this. We need to scale things up so that they don't need as much they don't need all the laborers in the field anymore. The laborers can come, they can work for us in the city and build all these things in the city. We'll just, and right now where it stands, they won't even need people soon. I mean, half these tractors already drive themselves in these fields. They just keep knocking down, clearing out the rows in order to make it bigger and bigger so that they can grow their corn and soy and be able to, make everything artificially. The sugars, sweeteners are all artificial in most stuff. It's corn syrup. It's not sugar. It doesn't have any nutrients to it. But at any rate, back to this report. In 1961, they devised this plan. By 1980, we have, if many of you guys can remember, probably the farm crisis, right? What was happening? So they had people coming into debt because they said, hey, you got to keep up, right? They put all these salesmen out there, said, you got to keep up. You got to buy these seeds, buy this fertilizer, buy this new equipment. Everybody was leaving the farm. Even today, I think the average age of the farmer is over 60 years old. Over 60 years old. What does that say about the future of agriculture? So, I mean, the brains of this world are saying, well, the future of agriculture, I guess, is just going to be machines because all the farmers are going to die out. We'll just replace them with machines. No, the future of agriculture is you and I. It's us young ones sitting out here and it's not as growing corn and soybeans. It's growing, fruits and vegetables and things that are good for us, that heal the body and not cause disease. Where am I going with all this? Well, I mean, I guess I'm trying to lay it out that it's stacked against us. And AI is coming because that's the answer. Well, it's not coming. It's here. It's here. It's the answer that they say that they're looking for. But it's also going to be the mark of the beast. There's no doubt that AI is going to be involved in the mark of the beast because they already have Neuralink. We actually saw a news report on it. Was that this week, Isaiah? We'll watch Neuralink, right? Which has been around for years, but they're trying it on more and more people, and it's working. Guys can run. They're doing it like people that are quadriplegics and completely paralyzed. They're putting this implant in their brain, in your head, and with it, they can access internet. They can actually move a mouse on the screen and do everything and run it just with their mind. Well, now what are you going to do when you're sitting in a room with people that have an implant in there that they can access AI, all information that's known to man instantaneous, and you're sitting there saying, what verse was that? Right? We're going to be obsolete. My belief is that Yeshua came to redeem man. Now, when you take this mark of the beast, we know, let's turn to there. Revelation 13, I think we're going to go to. Well, we know that it talks about 13:16, and he causes both great and small, this is a beast, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on their right hand or upon their foreheads, that no one should be able to buy or sell except he that has the mark and the name of the beast or the number of his name. But I'm looking for where he says that basically everybody that took the mark is going to be destroyed. 14 or 15? 14:9. Thank you. Yes. 8. So another messenger followed, saying, Babel is fallen, is fallen. I'm sure many of you understand Babylon, who Babylon is. Babylon is the powers of this world. It's the pushing of merchandise, of all these things. Babylon is behind AI. It is AI. But Babylon, it will fall. the great city, because she has made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. And a third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast in his image and receives his mark upon his forehead or upon his hand, he also shall drink the wine of the wrath of Elohim, which is poured out undiluted into the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the set apart messengers and before the Lamb. The Lamb, Yeshua, came to redeem mankind. And I believe that every man has that option of redemption. But once you take this mark, it's gone. I believe that's because you are no longer mankind. You are transhuman. You are beyond human. You're something else. You've said, what this vessel, this body that Yahweh gave me is not enough. I need something more. So therefore, greed, which is essentially the root of all sin, is greed. Greed has come in and has taken over you in order to say, I need to be more than human. I need to be transhuman. I need this, because that's what they're going to say, We're already at a world like, it's like anybody ever seen The Matrix? You guys seen the movie The Matrix? And I already feel like we're there when you go into places and everybody's just looking at a phone and everybody's glued to this device. It's like everybody's like in that scene where these bodies are plugged into the Matrix, but nobody can even look at the person next to them because they're just hooked into this thing. It's going to be 10 times worse. With this, humanity is being duped to sell our birthright. Our birthright is our humanity. It's our life. It's it's the connection to the earth. And basically we're being duped into selling it for a bowl of soup, for a bowl of AI. And, I talked to a lot of brothers, and one brother, an older brother, he was an retired electrical engineer. And he said, he doesn't like to fear because Yahweh says, fear not. And he doesn't. He knows that Yahweh. He said, but man, nothing, like you were talking earlier about such a thing on you, right? That's heaviness. He says it has such a heaviness on him that he has a hard time seeing how this is going to end, because it's coming. Because, I gave a message back in September up at YRM. Get a chance, go ahead and watch it. If you go onto Yahweh's Restoration Ministry, it's called The Deception Trap. What I did was the first 10 minutes of the message. Now, it's a spoiler alert, but I had AI write the sermon for me. I said, write the sermon. And it was actually pretty good. And it only took a couple little prompts, and it wrote this pretty good little sermon. And the crazy thing, here's the scary part. You get in there. I asked it, it gave it to me. It all had all the titles in it, right? And I said to it, do for this 5 things, take capital LORD and replace it with Yahweh. Take GOD and replace it with Elohim. Take JESUS, replace it with Yeshua. Christ, replace it with Messiah. And I think the capital L, lowercase ORD with Master. And it did it instantaneously. And it said it. I think it said I revised it with your preferred terminology. But then as I read through it, it also changed church to assembly. It changed amen to amen. And there was Eve, it changed to Chava. And there was a couple other, I didn't ask that, but it knew. It's like, oh, this is a sacred namer. We gotta, he's already got it spelled out. But that terrified me. That's like, so it's powerful. It's here, and Yahweh will provide. We fear not, because we know how this is going to end, but we have to be prepared as His servants. but we're going to have a hard time if we're all sick, right? If we're sick, if we're not on top of things. And my prayer, my whole purpose of this is just to try to encourage everyone to start looking at what you're putting in your body on a day-to-day basis, because it makes a difference. It makes an absolute difference. I'm not saying that it's going to make a difference tomorrow, but over time, it will bring healing. Good food will bring healing, but good food is harder and harder to find. Um, I'll throw out a plug because it is hard. I mean, it was easier living in Pennsylvania to find decent food. And the organic label has plenty of issues, but because a lot of times they'll bring things in from China, so kind of look where the origin is if you can. And China's organics, you really can't trust it. It may not, but it's by buying organic, you gotta at least have a better idea, have at least a little bit of confidence. But coming out, from Pennsylvania, you get a lot of good food. You get, raw milk at a grocery store. You can get a good organic food. But coming out here was hard, and we found Azure Standard, Azure. If you guys don't know about Azure Standard, that's where we do basically all of our shopping. What we don't produce ourselves comes from Azure Standard. They do drops. I'd imagine there's probably a drop somewhere in the neighborhood here within the Lake of the Ozarks area once a month, and you can buy your stuff in bulk. We get big 50-pound bags of stuff and buckets, buckets of honey, buckets of peanut butter, buckets of everything, but they're Sabbath keepers themselves. And they at least you have a place to try to source things. And bulk, we need to stock up. We need to have food, because if you got to rely on going to the grocery store every day, one day you're going to go there and they're not going to have what you need or what you want. So I guess that's kind of the end of what was on my mind, but I do want to kind of open it up to dialogue from here. Thoughts, questions, concerns, tell me where I'm wrong. Yeah.
I just want to say I really, really enjoyed your message today. It comes at a perfect time. Whether it's from the food, all of our food's poison. AI, I'll see what's happening. I just 300% with you. I need to try to get healthy, because the times we are coming.
Yeah.
And right now they've got so much coming in the air, coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
They've got arrows, and ultimately Yahweh's
Right.
all of that.
Absolutely.
But we're fighting a battle right now.
I guess yeah, absolutely. And talking to healing, a little suggestion, or the biggest suggestion I have with health, if you're at a point and you say, well, I need to start doing something to try to help heal me. First thing you got to do is heal your gut. Because the gut, I had leaky gut, right? It's because of the glyphosate, because of the gluten, honestly, is what it is. Like the gluten, we have gluten intolerance. I think a lot of it comes from the glyphosate is what really amped it up. How many people Roger, when you were a kid, how many people were gluten intolerant?
Never heard of it.
A couple of people.
See, we were raised, like you said, we milked our own cows. We went to the grocery store, to the town once a month. We got sugar, flour, basically.
But
That's it.
Heal your gut. You got to just eliminate a lot of foods for a while. Try to cut a lot of grains out, and get probiotics. Good fermented food. The sauerkraut, the kimchi. Yep. Good fermented food will start to heal your gut, because your gut. So like I love cows because a cow is like this giant fermenter on four legs, right? So it goes through and its whole, it has four different stomachs in order, and it does a lot of work for us. When we eat its protein or we drink its milk, it's processes all that stuff for us already, so we can get good protein. I push back against complete vegetarian diets, especially in today's age with I think in the Garden of Eden, it was absolutely possible. And early on, it was absolutely possible to eat a good vegetarian diet because the nutrient density of that food was more. But the cattle really, and other ruminants, they transfer and put those proteins that they're more, that they're ready for our body to take and build, to repair our cells, to build us up. So at any rate, they do it through fermentation is where I was getting at. It takes a lot of fermentation to break down grass. We can't eat grass, but they can. And that's what's amazing, because they take something that we eat, you eat grass. Number one, it's not going to taste good. Number two, you're going to choke on it trying to get it down. And then number three, when you get it in your stomach, you ain't going to do anything because you don't have four stomachs to process grass. Yeah, unless you're Nebuchadnezzar. But until we, that's what a cow does. It takes vegetation that we can't use and turns it into stuff that we can. And that's the genius of Yahweh's creation. It's like every little part of creation that you can think about, it just goes, wow, praise Yahweh, because he is amazing. Any other thoughts?